Folk Tales. Jack Crow. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, there lived an elderly couple who had nothing in the world except a young son they called Jack Crow. As soon as the boy was old enough to know his own mind, he told his parents, "I've decided to go out into the world to find work with a wealthy family." His elderly parents did not protest, and so Jack Crow set forth to seek his fortune. When he reached the edge of the village, he caught sight of a swarm of ants marching from one field to the next across the road. And right at the back, he saw a single lame ant that fell by the wayside and could not rejoin its friends. So Jack Crow helped the little ant back to its tiny feet. "Thank you for your kind help," said the ant. "In return for your good deed, I shall give you this whistle. Whenever you're in trouble, blow it, and I'll come to your aid in an instant." So Jack Crow put it in his pocket and continued on his way. As the moon rose in the sky, he found himself in the middle of a vast forest, where a white-haired old man lived in a small house. "Good evening, old man," said Jack. "Good evening to you too, son. What brings you to this distant place?" the old man asked. "I'm looking for a wealthy family who will employ me to work, but now I simply need shelter for the night," Jack Crow told him. So the old man let him stay for the night, and in the morning he gave him some wise advice. "Well, my boy, you should follow the track through the forest, where you will find a vast meadow. There you will discover a giant mountain. On top of that mountain stands a castle crafted from pure gold, and that is where the king resides. I happen to know that the king needs servants, so I suggest you go there to seek employ." So Jack Crow thanked the old man and continued on his way. When he reached the edge of the forest, he noticed a flock of crows flying around something on the ground a little way ahead. There he found a crow flapping helplessly around because its feathers were heavy with morning dew and it could not get off the ground. Young Jack took pity on the bird, picked it up and petted and patted it until all its feathers had dried. Then the bird said, "Now hear me, Jack Crow. You've done me a good deed, so in turn I shall give you this whistle. If you're ever in trouble, blow it, and I shall come to your aid in an instant." Jack soon came to the foot of the mountain on the shores of the sea. As he stood and stared out, he saw the waves toss a fish from the waters that landed flapping on the ground. Jack took pity on the fish and gently helped it back into the salty water. When the fish was fully recovered, it said, "In return for your good deed, you can expect another. I know you have 2 whistles already, so let me give you a third. If ever you're in trouble, blow it, and I'll come to your aid in an instant." So Jack hurried to the castle on top of the mountain. There the king greeted him and asked, "Well, what can I do for you, my fine fellow?" "I seek work with a wealthy family, your majesty." And the king said, "In my kingdom, 3 days are the same as a full year. The payment is 300 florins, and you can eat and drink your fill. But if you fail to obey my commands, I shall have you executed." On the first day, just after sunset, the king had Jack brought before him and said, "Now hear me, Jack Crow. You are now my servant, so I command you go into the barnyard where you'll find 3 piles of millet. By morning, I want you to sort the seeds from the straw. If you fail to complete my command, I shall have you executed." Jack Crow was worried out of his wits. What should he do? Then he suddenly remembered the whistle the ant had given him, and he blew it. Out of nowhere, a huge swarm of ants appeared. There were so many of them that not even 1,000,000 men could have counted them. "How can we help you, Jack, my friend?" "I've been given a task impossible to complete," Jack said. And he told the ant what the king had commanded. "Have no fear," the ants told him. "We'll get hard to work and sort all the seeds from the straw by morning." By the time the sun had risen in the morning sky, the millet seeds and the straw were in 2 separate stacks. The king said, "I see you've done a good job, so now you are free for the rest of the day. But you must report to me again this evening." When evening came, the king said, My faithful servant, I command you to go to the front of my castle where my 3 daughters are strolling back and forth. I want you to make sure they come to no harm. If you fail your task, I'll have you executed." Jack did as he was bid and sat down in front of the entrance to the castle to keep watch over the 3 princesses. And as Jack sat there, he grew so bored and tired that he fell fast asleep. And the 3 princesses turned into crows and flew away. Young Jack woke with a start to see the girls had vanished. He was worried out of his wits until he remembered the whistle the crow had given him. He blew the whistle and a flock of crows arrived. "How can we help you, friend?" "I am so very sad because I have a task impossible to complete. The king commanded me to watch over his 3 daughters, but I dozed off and all 3 princesses vanished," Jack replied. "Fear not," the crows told him, "we shall find them for you. Climb up on my back and we'll fly off in search of the 3 lost princesses." So Jack climbed onto the crow's back and they flew off into the distance, but the princesses were nowhere to be found. So then they flew behind the moon, where they saw the princesses in the shape of crows. Then Jack threw 3 reins around the crows' necks and led them slowly back down into the castle courtyard. On the evening of the 3rd day, the king again ordered that Jack be brought before him. The king said, "I command you to go and find the gold ring which fell off my finger today and rolled into the sea. If you fail the task, I'll have you executed." Jack knew that this was impossible to solve alone, and so he ran to the seashore where he blew on the whistle that the fish had given him. A shoal of fish appeared in an instant and asked, "How can we help you, friend?" There Jack Crow quickly told them what he had been commanded to do. "Don't worry, friend," said the king of the fish. "We shall do our best to find that ring for you." The fish searched and dawn was almost breaking, but they still had not found the ring, until they found it in the belly of an enormous goldfish. "Well, my faithful servant," said the king, "you've done an honest job of serving me. In return, I will give you the hand of one of my daughters in marriage, half of my kingdom, and 3 cartloads of gold for good measure." However, Jack Crow did not want to marry and did not want half the kingdom, for all he wanted was the gold, and the king happily gave it to him. Jack Crow drove the 3 carts home to his beloved parents, where they ate good food and drank fine wine, and all lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Contrary Wife and the Devil. Once upon a time there lived a woman who was very contrary. One day her husband told her to take his lunch to the field an hour early. So instead she took it out an hour late. Another time he told her to take better food out to him, but instead she took worse. Eventually her husband learned to make his requests backwards and said, well, wife, do not bring stuffed chicken and pancakes to me today, because they are not the kind of food to eat out in the field." It's true his wife took the food out earlier that day, but she did take her husband his stuffed chicken and pancakes. The next day, her husband got hard to work and dug a deep pit at the end of the field, and the farmer's wife came to him with his food for lunch. The couple soon settled down next to the pit, and the man said to his wife, "Wife of mine, do not go near to the pit, because you will surely fall into it." But the man's wife still ventured close to the pit. "Wife of mine, take care and do not fall into the pit." But the man's wife fell right to the bottom of the deep pit. "Hey!" Then the man left his wife where she was, and he went home for his supper. The contrary wife tried hard to climb out of the pit, but it proved pointless. I would even thank the devil if he got me out of here. Well, here I am, the devil said to the wife. I came to get you out. Climb onto my back. So the wife climbed onto the devil's back and he pulled her out of the pit. Then the devil said to her, now you can get off. And the woman said, I will not. So the devil said, then take good care because you will soon fall off. And the devil began to dash madly around the land. Soon the devil grew tired and he said to the woman, get off my back this minute. And the woman said, no, I will not. The devil was tired out and he said to the old woman, now get off my back. No, I will not. The devil was desperate and did not know what to do next. Then he saw a soldier riding by and said, good hussar, if you can get this woman off my back, I will make you king. So the hussar got off his horse, walked cursing over to the woman and told her if she did not get off, he would cut her in two with his sharp sword. But the wife said, no, I will not. So the brave hussar fought the woman with his sword. Get off his back, good woman, or I will end your life. No, I will not. Then the hussar said, if you won't, then stay sitting on the devil. So then the woman said, no, I will not. And she leapt off the devil's back, and the devil vanished. The hussar went on his way the following day, and the devil was waiting for him under a bridge as he planned to crown him king. The devil saw the hussar riding towards him. He poked his head out from under the bridge and shouted, fine hussar, the woman isn't still here, is she? She is not, do not fear. And as the hussar reached him, the devil said, now I will make you king. You must go to the king's daughter, and during your journey I will possess her soul. And then her hand will be promised to the man who can drive me out of her. But no one will be able to do this, only you. You simply have to say, jump out because I want to take her. But should I possess another of his daughters, you must not drive me out, for then I will possess you, and you will never be free of me again. So now the hussar travelled to the town where he heard the news that the king's daughter had been possessed by the devil. The decree was made that whosoever could drive the devil out would get the princess and half the kingdom. The hussar was delighted by this news, and so he reported to the palace saying he could drive the devil out. He said to the devil, jump out, devil, because I want to take her. Then the devil jumped out right away, and plans were made for the royal wedding. Years passed, and the news came that the devil had now possessed the king's second daughter. The hussar was asked to go out, but he was unwilling because he remembered what the devil had told him before. The hussar was promised treasure and many jewels, and so he eventually went. There he said to the devil, devil, jump out of there too, because I want to take her. The devil jumped out right away and was about to attack the poor hussar when he stamped hard on his foot and said, do you hear, devil? That woman is coming. Hearing this, the devil began to run and run and ran away forever and a day. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Diligent Girl and the Lazy Girl. Once upon a time, there lived an old man and an old woman, and each had a daughter from their previous marriage. The old woman was always angry with her husband's daughter and did not like her the slightest bit. Things went from bad to worse until one day the old woman chased the girl away from home, saying that she should seek work with a rich family. The girl walked and was walking past a pear tree when the tree spoke to her. "Where are you going?" "I'm going to find a job as a servant with a rich family," the young girl replied. "Come here and rid me of my dry branches, and I will do you a good deed in return." Then the young girl walked on her way until she passed a grapevine, and the vine spoke to her. "Come here and hoe around my roots, and I will do you a good deal in return." Then the young girl walked on her way until she passed a crumbling oven. "Please come here and make me tidy and clean, and I will do you a good deed in return." Then the young girl walked on her way until she came across a broken-down well. "Where are you going?" "I journey to find work. Please come here and make me tidy and clean, and I will do you a good deed in return." So the young girl did as she was bid and bailed the stale water out of the well and walked on her way until she met a tiny dog. And the dog said, "Please wash me, brush me and trim me, and I will do you a good deal in return." The young girl cleaned and trimmed the dog, and the dog thanked her, and she walked on her way until she saw a beautiful house. There were fairies living in the house. The fairies asked the purpose of her journey, and so the young girl told them. Then the fairies said, "Why don't you stay here and become our servant? There are 7 rooms. You have to sweep out 6 rooms every day, but you must never go to the 7th room." So the young girl worked for a year and a day, and at the end of the year, the young girl said, "I would like to leave now and go home to show my parents what I've earned." "You have been a faithful maid," the fairies said. "You did as you were told, so now we will tell you what you have earned." "Come here and lie down atop these gold coins. Roll over, and whatever sticks to you is yours." "And now go and roll over on the silver coins, and whatever sticks to you is yours." The girl did as she was told, then stood up and bid farewell to the fairies. On her way home, she came across a little dog again that said, "Come here and take as many pearls as you wish." The dog was covered in pearls, and the young girl took the pearls and hung them around her neck. She walked on her way until she reached the well again, where jugs hung so that people could drink from its sweet water. The young girl was thirsty, and so she took a drink and walked on her way. When she reached the oven again, she noticed it was filled with bread and cake, and the oven said, "Come here and eat your fill in return for your good deed." She ate as much as she could, packed more to take home, and then walked on her way. Next, she reached the grapevine that hung heavy with ripe fruit. So here the girl stopped and ate and drank as much as she could. Then the girl walked on her way again until she came to the pear tree, and the pear tree said, "I've been waiting for you, as all my pears are ripe." As the girl neared home, the cockerel crowed to announce her arrival. "Cock-a-doodle-doo! My mistress is coming home covered in silver and gold." The young girl heard the cockerel's call and ran home to bring joy at last to her old father. "Cock-a-doodle-doo! My mistress is coming home covered in silver and gold." The old woman shouted, be quiet. That's not true. Once again the cockerel said, cock-a-doodle-doo, my mistress is coming home covered in silver and gold. The old woman said, you've earned very nicely indeed, but now my own daughter will go forth and work for a rich family, and she will earn a great deal more than you've managed. When the old woman's daughter reached the pear tree, it said, come here and rid me of my dry branches, and I will do you a good deal in return. The girl said, I will not ruin my pretty white hands and my lovely tiny feet, no matter what happens. When the girl reached the grapevine, it asked her to hoe its roots and to expect a good deal in return. But once again, the girl refused to do anything that might ruin her pretty white hands and her lovely tiny feet, no matter what happened. Next, she reached the oven. The oven asked her to repair it and it would do her a good deed in return. But the girl said she would not ruin her pretty white hands and her lovely tiny feet with disgusting mud and clay no matter what happened. Next she came to the broken down well. Please come here and make me tidy and clean. But again she refused to dirty her pretty white hands and her lovely tiny feet, no matter what happened. Then she met the little dog that said, come here and trim me. But she refused to touch the dog because she would not dirty her pretty white hands and her lovely tiny feet, no matter what happened. Next, she reached the beautiful big house and asked that she be allowed to sleep there for the night. The fairies living there asked her where she was going, and so she told them. In reply, they asked her to stay and work as their maid. They said, here there are 6 rooms, and you must sweep them every day, but you must never enter the 7th room. The girl did as she was told and swept the 6 rooms every day and ignored the 7th. But after a while, her curiosity forced her to open the door to the 7th room. To her horror, she saw that it was filled with frogs and snakes, and they bit her and stung her so terribly that by the time she managed to escape, she was covered in blood. And so she left the fairy's house with no payment at all. On her way home, she met the dog and went up to ask for some pearls. The dog said, you refused to help me, and now I refuse to help you. The girl reached the well and was very thirsty, but was not allowed to drink. When she reached the oven, it was packed with fresh bread and cakes, but she could not eat any of them, because when she reached inside for some, it burned her hands terribly. When she reached the grapevine, she tried to pick a bunch of grapes and to drink a glass of wine, but the grapevine pushed her hand away. And when she reached the pear tree, she could not pick a single pear. As she neared home, the cockerel caught sight of her and flew to the top of the fence and let it be known to everyone that, cock-a-doodle-doo, my mistress is coming all covered in blood. The old woman went to the fence and said, that's not true, she's covered in gold. But the cockerel repeated, cock-a-doodle-doo, my mistress is coming all covered in blood. The old woman said, that's not true, because she's covered in gold. The cockerel repeated, cock-a-doodle-doo, here comes my mistress all covered in blood. That's not true, shouted the old lady. But the old man said, now you can see that my daughter earned more as a maid than yours ever did. This led to such a quarrel that the old woman and her daughter left the old man's home. Then the old man and his daughter lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Shepherd and the Snake. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived a poor shepherd boy. The only thing the shepherd boy possessed was a little donkey, and he spent his days guarding the mayor's flock of sheep. He sat watching the flock one day and thinking how unfair it was that some people had money and were rich, while others had none and were poor. He sat thinking and thinking when he suddenly heard the sound of crying. Help me! Help me! The boy followed the sound of crying and walked to a hole in the ground, where he came upon a yellow-bellied snake wriggling in a fire. Help me, shepherd boy, and I will soon repay the favour. So the boy held out his stick, and the yellow-bellied snake slithered up it and out of the fiery flames. Then the snake said, "Follow me, and you should know that my father is the king of all snakes." The yellow-bellied snake slithered along, and the young shepherd walked quickly behind. He left his donkey to watch over the sheep. The boy followed the snake until they found themselves in a forest, where the yellow-bellied snake suddenly slithered under a flat stone. The snake shouted back, "Push the stone away and follow me." The young shepherd did as the snake had said and revealed steps going down into the ground. And he walked down and down and down until he arrived in a beautiful diamond meadow. "This is my father's palace." And the gate to the palace was guarded by two very large snakes. There the yellow-bellied snake slithered in, and the young shepherd followed close behind. They passed through one room after the other until they arrived at the throne room that sparkled with silver and gems. The walls were studded with diamonds, and everything was decorated in precious metal. The Snake King was sitting proudly on an enormous throne, and when he wanted to give his servants an order, he would simply flick his tail and bells would ring. Then the yellow-bellied snake hurried up to the king and embraced him. "Father dear, don't harm this poor shepherd boy because he saved me from the fire." "Now, young shepherd boy, you may choose from two things as your reward for saving my son. You can learn to speak to all the animals, or I can give you a bag of gold." The poor shepherd boy thought hard because he was sorely tempted by the promise of riches, but he would never ever have the chance to learn the language of the animals again. And so that is what he chose. "Come here, my child," said the Snake King. So the young shepherd boy approached the fearsome snake, and the king hissed in his ear, and he instantly understood what the king was saying to his snake son. So then the poor shepherd boy bid farewell to the yellow-bellied snake and his father the king, and started to walk back the way he had come. He walked on until he came to the beautiful meadow, climbed back up the underground steps, and re-emerged into his own world once more. Then he herded his sheep up and sat down to reflect on all that had happened to him that day. And as he sat there, two tiny birds flew up and landed in the top of a tree, where they sat talking to each other. Did you know? If that poor shepherd boy only knew what lies at the foot of this tree, he would not stay poor for one day more. But the young shepherd heard this and understood all they said. So he swiftly drove his sheep back to their owner, picked up his sharpest axe, and walked back to the forest to the tree where he had sat. And he dug until he discovered, to his great delight, a big pot of gold. As evening fell, he took the gold home and never had to watch the mare's sheep again. Then he soon bought a beautiful house with plenty of land, married his bride, and they both lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Pink Pig. Once upon a time, in a tiny village, there lived an old woman who never had a child of her own. And she was once overheard saying that she would not really care if God gave her a puppy, just as long as she had a young one to raise. The years went by and the woman eventually gave birth to a baby. But it was actually a baby pig. And it was only then she remembered what she had said about God giving her a baby to raise. But what could she do? Now she had a pink pig, and it was her duty to raise it as best she could. The women of the village would gather in the day and gossip, and the pink pig would always sit with its mother and chuckle happily to itself. Let me tell you that the reason your little pink pig squeals so is that it wants to go to school with the other boys and girls in the village. Please don't mock me so, the mother of the pink pig said, who felt sadly ashamed to have such a child. But the rest of the women nagged her until she eventually sent the pink pig to school in the village. And there the pink pig continued to squeal for the teacher until she threw a book at the pink pig to silence it. The pink pig's nose moved from letter to letter until it eventually learned to read like the other children. One day the children all went off to pick strawberries and the pink pig wanted to join them, but its mother wouldn't let it go. But the neighbours nagged her until she eventually agreed. And as the other children all carried baskets, the pink pig wanted one too, and so its mother hung a little basket on its snout. The boy who lived next door was exactly the same age as the little pink pig, and his mother told him to take very good care of the pig that afternoon. Then the pink pig lagged behind the others on their way and it slipped out of its pigskin. And when it took it off, it was plain for all the world to see that the pink pig was the most beautiful little girl in the land. The pretty little girl quickly filled her basket and then slipped her pigskin back on and went to join the others. The boy next door saw all of this, but he did not say a word. All the children's parents began to worry about their offspring, and so they stood out on the road as they waited for them to come home. Look, the pink pig has bought strawberries too. Who could have filled its basket? The pink pig, the boy said, but he said nothing more of what he had seen. When the children grew up, the boys began to court the girls, and the boy next door went to see the pink pig. His father and mother watched forlornly and wondered what their son wanted from such an ugly beast. But the boy next door never gave up, and he only ever visited the pink pig. At last the time came to marry for the boy next door. Whom will you marry, son? Why, the pink pig, of course. Don't shame us, son. We are old and respected, so don't discredit us now. But his father could clearly see that the boy next door was determined to make the pink pig his bride for life. So he gathered his friends together and went to ask for the pig's hand in marriage. Sadly, my son will never get married if the pink pig refuses his request. The peculiar couple were engaged to be married for some time, and people gathered from far and near to witness their wedding, as it was not every day that a man married a pig. After the wedding feast, the young couple went up to the loft as was the custom. The boy next door had told his mother everything, and he had also told her to take good care and burn the pigskin when they threw it down. The band played when the young couple went up to the loft, and it played when they came down again. The pink pig had gone, and a beautiful girl appeared in its place. Everyone was bewildered by the beauty of the girl, who had once been a pink pig. pig. And that is the end of the Pink Pig's curly tail.